Some eminent Nigerians have written about the state of the nation, and now they're proffering solutions. In that article, they say that Nigeria is at a crossroads. And the Senate today opens probe into the alleged sabotage of the economy in the oil and gas sector. The GMD of the NNPCL says they are not thieves in the oil and gas sector and the NNPC. Hello everyone, welcome to the program. This is Politics Today live on Channels Television. I'm Sean Kimale here in Abuja. Tonight our attention is about the state of the nation. And incidentally, it's a day that some eminent Nigerians have come together to say we have a problem. Nigeria is at a crossroad. You will see later on in the program whether or not you agree with them on their position. But then one thing you may not be able to disagree with them is the fact that we need help and that we need to move forward as a people. But they are not only highlighting the problems and the challenges of this country, they're proffering solutions. Eminent Nigerians in every right. And they're cut across every ethnic and every region of this country. And they're speaking up. I have one of the eminent Nigerians here in the studio tonight. But one thing that we get our attention first is the rot and the corruption in the oil and gas sector. And there is a notion that are those who are sabotaging this country within that sector. Don't forget, it's the mainstream of our revenue, of our economy. And of course, if there are those who are sabotaging and who are filled with corruption, don't we need to find them out? The Senate said they are ready to take up that task. And when some of the officials of government and those of the NNPCL appeared before them, the first thing the NNPCL GMD said, we are not thieves. But then that they are ready to work with the National Assembly. And of course, they are also asking that the session should be televised. We'll bring you some of the soundbite and get insight from an expert tonight. Before we get into all of these issues, let me bring you up to speed with some of your political roundup stories across the nation.
Seven Polish nationals have been arrested by the Department of State Services for their alleged involvement in the display of foreign flags in Kano. This was revealed during the briefing of members of the Diplomatic Corps on the End Bad Governance protests in Abuja. The Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Yusuf Tugar, states that the past few days has seen bad narratives on the social media about Nigeria, and that is currently threatening the peace and stability of the nation.
While the government continues to work hard through the various reform programs and measures to address the challenges facing Nigeria and Nigerians, it is pertinent to remind us that no nation tolerates foreign interference in its domestic affairs and that of its citizens.
Governor of Bayelsa State, Daoye Diri, has criticized the current system of local government creation in Nigeria, describing it as unjust and imbalanced. At a media briefing with journalists in Yenagoa, the state capital, Governor Diri notes that the issue of local government autonomy, as pronounced by the Supreme Court, is fundamentally a constitutional matter. The governor suggested that the country should prioritize reviving the devalued naira over implementing a new wage structure.
We have the list of local governments in Nigeria. 8 local governments as opposed to those who have 40, who have 30. And so, of what benefit will the local government autonomy be to me and the people of Bayelsa State?
The Anambra State Governor, Professor Chukwuma Soludo, has inaugurated the board of the Anambra State Independent Electoral Commission with Genevieve Osakwe as chairman. The inauguration, which took place at Governor's Lodge, Amobia, is coming after over 10 years since the last local government election was conducted in the state. In Rivers, former local government chairmen in the state have accused Governor Siminalayi Fubara of sponsoring hoodlums to infiltrate the End Bad Governance protests and causing mayhem in the state for political gain. The chairman, who was speaking in Port Harcourt earlier today, accused Governor Fubara of masterminding attacks on the home of the FCT minister and the APC secretariat. The former chairman threatened to send people to the home of the governor if the situation repeats itself. The Ogun State Chief Judge Justice Mosumola Dikpeolu has warned members of the state judiciary against corruption and other vices that can put the state justice system in disrepute, just as she admonished them to uphold the utmost sense of responsibility in the discharge of their official responsibilities. She made the call in Abeokuta, the state capital, while swearing in 20 customary court presidents and a member of the state customary court at the judiciary in Abeokuta, the Ogun State capital.
Thank you so much, everyone. There you have it. You've been set with your political roundup stories. Let's get to it. And we begin from the dirty side of things. Well, it's in the oil and gas sector. How dirty is it? You know, of course, if you have 4 refineries in the country and none of it is working, and we're one of the largest producer, well, not in terms literal production, but in terms of what we can dig underground, because it's now become a curse when a country has abundance of oil under the ground, but they cannot refine same for the use of their citizens. Isn't that a shame? Because at what we are right now, what we're facing in the country, we need to start telling ourselves the truth. The Nigerian Senate today said they began a probe into the rot in the petroleum sector and the possible sabotage of the economy. That investigative panel, which opens today, the Group Executive, Chief Executive Officer of the Nigerian National Petroleum Company, NNPCL, Mele Kyari, he says personnel of the company have nothing to do with substandard importation of petroleum products into the country. He appeared before Senator Opoyemi Bamidele-led ad hoc committee over alleged economic sabotage in the petroleum industry, alongside the likes of the CBN governor, the Minister of State for Petroleum Resources, and the Minister of the Economy. And he has says that the NNPCL has faced undue media attacks from persons doing everything to create the impression that the NNPCL is sabotaging the nation's economy. Let me start by allowing you to listen to the NNPCL Group CEO.
And I assure you, Mr. Chairman, the NNPC Limited and our board of directors and our shareholders are faithful, loyal to this country. We do not lie to this country. And we do nothing to sabotage the economic interests of this country. As a matter of fact, NNPC is the economic interest of this country. And we understand this very, very perfectly. Just by the provisions of the law, and also, and I can share this with you, for me and my colleagues in the NNPC, even by conviction of faith, Mr. Chairman, we will do nothing. We believe there is eternal accountability, Mr. Chairman. Even if you don't unravel what is happening, we know that God knows. And that God will hold us accountable. And we're after no one. We are persecuting nobody. We are not criminals. We are not thieves. We are serving our country, and we believe very, very strongly that we're faithful, loyal to this country.
The outlook for oil prices for the rest of this year and beyond is positive, is strong. We expect the price of oil to stay relatively high, and so we must seize this opportunity. Amongst other things, we must seize this opportunity to maximize the whole oil and gas sector value chain. And that's why we are here to discuss what it will take to get us really moving and maximizing.
All right. You've heard the NNPCL Group CEO and the Minister of the Economy, Mr. Wale Edun. Now, let me allow you to listen to the leader of the Senate and the chair of that committee, the ad hoc committee, Senator Opoyemi Bamidele. Take a listen to him.
Every stakeholder invited here plays significant statutory role and collaborates to provide comprehensive oversight, regulatory compliance, security, and policy direction to address and mitigate any act of economic sabotage in the Nigerian petroleum industry. Our mission is never to witch hunt any individual, corporate entity, or government agency, but to unravel the root causes of fundamental challenges within the petroleum industry and devise a legislative framework to to discourage the activities of some rogue actors in the industry.
All right, you heard them. Let's now bring some sense of it. There are those who will say, is there anything that we have not heard about these corruption in the oil and gas sector? NAITI, as an institution, will come forward to say, these are the issues. There are those experts who are saying that there are cabals. There are those little individuals, little in numbers, but they are so strong that they are holding the nation and the jugular. And the reason why the economy of the country is at this stage is because the president took a decision on the very first day he got into office, and the ripple effect is what we are seeing today. If those few people who are holding us back are not the reason for this problem, then we need to start rethinking our problem. But then, let's go forward. I mean, you remember what happened in the House of Representatives when they planned to probe the downstream and the mainstream sector of the oil and gas sector. The House leadership has since resolved that because there are controversies, allegations of $1.2 million exchanging hands. If we were probing corruption in the NNPCL, but allegations of corruption is also already trailing and controversy back and forth. But let's focus on the Senate today. Professor Yemi Oke is a senior advocate of Nigeria designate, and he's an expert in energy law. He joins us virtually from Lagos. He joins us now live on the program. Thanks so much, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you for having me, Shil. I'm happy to be here.
Thank you so much. It looks like a deja vu to you, isn't it? When you hear probing of the oil and gas sector. But do you think anything different will come out of this, Prof?
Shil, I'm not as optimistic, and that's speaking the truth. I'm not as optimistic that something will come out of it. I will be pleasantly surprised because of the personality who is sharing that panel. Talking of Senator Kwame Bamidele, is a known person, is an activist, tested, proven kind of, well, I don't think he should change who he is. So we have an activist in the House to probe, and we expect serious problem. By nature, and we should get it right fundamentally, by nature, the petroleum sector has always been needlessly convoluted by operation, by structure, by management, by its politics. Even the OPEC itself is called a cartel. So that brings me to the origin or the trend before getting to where we are. We all saw and knew how petroleum industry built took almost 15, 20 years before it could see the light of day. We've had series of templates, series of versions of the petroleum industry built before we eventually had a petroleum industry act in its imperfect state. We've been having all kinds of probes, subsidy regime, scandal, crude oil theft, bunkering, illegal refineries, until recent, what I call Aliko Dangote whistleblowing. You alluded to the incident of the House of Reps, and then with another a major player. Nigerians are not interested in the inquiry, in the probing. Nigerians are interested in the outcome of the probing and getting us to do things differently in the petroleum sector. It's a sector that is central to the nerves of Nigeria, particularly our survival as a country. We should get it right. Ordinarily, you don't expect the president to be the minister of petroleum. But because of the nature of the sector, successive government had placed the head of state or the president as the minister for petroleum resources. That is an integrity issue. That is a governance issue. Does it mean we can't see that sector off to a substantive minister, away or aside from the president. Of course, the structure that we had before was one that made NNPC Limited then needlessly conflicted. NNPC, old NNPC defunct, was a regulator, was a sector regulator. The old NNPC was also industry player. Now, with the petroleum industry had attempts have been made justifiably to do things differently. And we expected that there would be kind of resistance. We are seeing the resistance now because at the level of NUPRC, Nigerian Upstream Petroleum Regulatory Commission, the Senate is in charge. The law, the Act, gives Senate of the Federal Republic of Nigeria extensive powers, oversight. Ditto for NPRA, Nigerian Midstream and Downstream Petroleum Regulatory Authority. Senate has a major say because they approve the appointment, the nomination of those who are to regulate. Now, the Senate is stepping forward in line with its constitutional duties and mandate to ask relevant questions as to what has been happening in that crucial sector. And Nigerians are expectant, they want results, not just, this shouldn't be one of those usual probes because of what is at stake.
Prof, let me quickly ask you. So there are questions raised. We have 4 refineries: the Warri Refinery, the Port Harcourt Refinery, the Kaduna Refinery, and all of these refineries that we have, the youngest of the refineries is older than 20 years. But they are concerned about the fact that Nigeria is paying those who work in these refineries. Nigeria pays almost every other time for the turnaround maintenance of these refineries. We've heard date and date upon date of when these turnaround maintenance will start. We even hear that we spent more than $1.5 billion in turnaround maintenance. Do you have an idea of who are those behind? Is it that there are deliberate attempts at not wanting these refineries to work? If these refineries do not work, to whose advantage? Who is going to be benefiting it? I mean, it can't just be ordinary that all of these refineries are not working. What exactly do you think the problem is, Prof?
Sean, you and I are involved. Meaning you and I, I'm not saying Sean or Kibaloye or Yemi, okay. Nigerians are the reason why Nigeria is the way it is, both in the petroleum sector, both in the electricity sector, in the aviation sector, in the education sector, in all sectors. So we don't expect Europeans or Chinese to come and fix our problems because those are Nigerian problems. Those are problems that must be and should be fixed by patriotic Nigerians. Do you understand the kind of challenges we've always had in the petroleum sector? Until we were able to take that step in the telecoms, we had the old NITEL, a bureaucracy, public bureaucracy like NNPC. We had to do away with NITEL. Even when he got his own GSM telephony license, nothing happened to it. We just started taking initial positive step in the petroleum sector. I expected serious levels of resistance against the Dangote refinery. It means it will no longer be business as usual. And job for the boss will reduce. Because Nigerian government is not going to wait for perpetual, unending, turnaround, turning and turnaround maintenances of Warri, Port Harcourt, and other refineries. The structure is now getting liberalized gradually. We're having modular refineries coming on board. We're having Dangotes that should come on stream fully. We're having BUA, which is going to come on stream subsequently. The sector will be freed up for decent levels of competitiveness. Then we're going to have accurate picture. We're going to be able to have a bit of mathematical accuracy in the consumption pattern and consumption trend of Nigerians vis-a-vis petroleum product. Talking about petroleum, talking about the diesel and aviation fuel. What we have currently, I'm sorry, a bundle of fraud. The petroleum sector has never been fully transparent.
Yeah, since 2022, Prof.
So the government structure will struggle to get things strong correctly.
The then Minister of State for Petroleum said in 2022 that the refinery in Port Harcourt will be ready by December of that year. Sometimes this year, the NNPCL Group CEO, Mele Kyari, was quoted to have said the Port Harcourt refinery will be ready by April of this year. Of last year, in 2023. We are now in 2024. It will be ready, it will be ready, it will be ready. And these are one of the issues raised today on the floor, at the floor of the adult committee investigative hearing, that I haven't spent $1.5 billion US to repair a refinery. And there are those who will tell you that you can actually build a new refinery with that same amount. Yeah, there are those who have debated it. And the fact remains that spending all that kind of amount, and yet we keep having a postponement of the day of this. Shouldn't we be having someone to name and shame and hold accountable? Shouldn't someone be spending some time behind bars because of this, Prof?
Chicho, let me tease your brain. I belong to a forum. When we are tired of arguing things, we will say, I don't want to quote the originator of that phrase. We say, Nigerians and Nigeria, we will be ready when we are ready. Ditto for the petroleum sector. Ditto for the refineries. Ditto for Dangote refineries. Ditto for modular refineries that are going to come on stream. Ditto for Boa that's about to come on stream. For all this, we will be ready as a country when we are ready. When we are ready to take the bulls by the horns, when we are ready to be patriotic, when we are ready to fix Nigeria, when we are ready and tired of the challenges that we are facing as Nigerians. Because I don't expect anybody to come and solve our problems ourselves. We have enough brains here. We have enough patriotic hands here. We have those who are knowledgeable about the sector here, but some people are afraid of taking the right steps. They are afraid of stepping on toes. This is a time when you need to step not only on toes, you need to step on stomachs of some people to get this country working. And particularly in toes because Nigeria must work under the current and must begin to work under the Tinubu administration. We can't wait. Nigeria is a country in a hurry for development. We're not getting it right in the petroleum sector. We're not getting it right in the electricity sector. And this is a sector that I'm extremely passionate about. Documented. We're not saying anything new. There's nothing we're trying to do. There's not been said, documented in books and articles 15 to 20 years ago, including now that we're about having state regimes of state regulatory regime in the power sector. Something that ought to have happened since about 20 years ago. From the Lagos Serum thing and subsequent activities, research activities and data we put out there. We will be ready when we are ready as a country. I think we're about to get ready now and we should keep going.
Right, now, let's hold people accountable. And taking the bull by the horn, right? We have the Minister of Petroleum, who is the president, and one we wonder why the appetite of presidents wanting to become the Minister of Petroleum, and this has happened over the past administration. But let's hold President Tinubu accountable because he's the Minister of Petroleum. I mean, if the NNPCL Group CEO comes out today and says, we are not thieves, we are not criminals. Well, there are those who have accused the NNPCL of having some group of people who are stifling the development of this country with their activities. Could that be responsible for why Mr. Kyari had come out to say, we are not criminals, we are not thieves? Yeah, we will tell the nation the truth. That means that as soon as anybody comes out to say, I'm not lying, for you to start on the defense line as that means something is fishy, isn't it? What do you know? What can you tell us about the NPCL as it is presently constituted? Why are people asking for the heads of those who are running that company? Do we need to rejig it? Do we need to somewhat dissolve it and make it work better? Or what do we need to make it work? Because it's at the center of our progress economically.
Sure. Let me tease your brain again. Well, I'm not going to do an advocacy for Mr. President because he said we should not pity him. But the fact remains, as rightly said, is the Minister for Petroleum Resources. And as to the allegation that, the Marikieri and others are saying they are Northeast, they are patriotic Nigerians, and you are worried, maybe because also of your acoustic mindset as a legal-minded and investigative journalist, that how can you start your defense like that? And in Yoruba, there is an adage that says, we are saying who entered the kitchen, and we are saying I didn't steal from the meat. I didn't steal meat from the pot. They said, Talo wa kitchen. That wasn't the question asked. And that will further raise curiosity. Just as rightly, we are suspicious of the response, the pattern of the response. We are saying here, there are questions left unanswered. It's documented. Maybe we need to start playing those videos where they said the NNPC Port Harcourt was it Warri or Port Harcourt now, was ready or will be ready. And I said in another studio that, hey, we will not even be ready in 2 years after that statement. And I'm still saying it. We will not, the refinery, the turnaround refinery of Port Harcourt and Warri will not be ready until minimum of 2 years after the declaration of intent. The initial declaration that says they will be ready or they were ready. It will still not be ready 2 years. Go and calculate it. Just as we predict the number of...
Why did you say so? Are you cursing it?
No, but...
that's heart-wrenching.
Quote me, Sean, quote me. Go and look at the date the declaration was made that the refineries were ready. Go back to those dates and quote me. The actual readiness of those refineries will be almost, if not more than 2 years after those declarations were made. So, we're Nigerians and nobody can claim to love this country more than us.
Yeah, Prof, where do we go from here? If you are the, I know you're a professor, but if you are the Minister of Petroleum, what would you do? How do we move forward?
Put on here the date the declaration was made that the refineries were fully ready. Start counting down. Then 2 years after, perhaps we'll be ready.
Where do we go from here? What do we go from here, Prof? How do we nip this in the bud?
I will know enough to not to say certain things. The refineries will not be ready until 2 years after they were initially declared to be ready.
Prof,
so
we have gotten to the point that we cannot keep anything without saying it. We are all stark naked as a people in the market square, in the face of the world. We are out of 6 Africans or black people that you see, at least 4 of them are Nigerians. That's how populated we are. We are so influential, we are so intelligent, we are so brilliant. And why are we so much backward in such a way that it does look like we can't deal with our destiny by ourselves?
Let me give you certain scenarios. There are dangerous, desperate players at different levels of the petroleum sector. There are those whose interest is in sustenance of importation of diesel. So any attempt to free up the market for diesel will be a challenge to them. There are those whose interest is in the importation of refined petroleum products because they take crude away. And the mathematics of the crude they take away will always, to refine, the mathematics of the crude they lead from Nigeria for purpose of refining for domestic consumption will never tally. The mathematics will always conflict.
It does look like we are in a hot mess.
I think we'll play enough in this country.
But
I'm
I'm
afraid of
sure
saying
that
the truth.
there will be a way forward for us. But thank you so much, Professor Yemi Oke, who is a senior advocate of Nigeria.
You go and pray and fast for Nigeria.
Haven't we been doing that all along? We will keep advocating, we will keep talking, and we will name and shame. Whoever that is behind the woes of this country, they will not succeed. Yes, we need to come together as a people and move our country forward. We've been backward for far too long. I mean, my parents told me about the backwardness of this country. I'm telling my own children about the backwardness of this country. We must get out of that chain. It's enough, it's enough, it's enough. Thank you so much, Prof, for talking to us tonight. We take a break.
Thanks for having me.
And when we return, Professor Ibrahim Jibring, who is a governance and democracy advocate and a scholar, will be joining me to talk about the article, Nigeria at a Crossroads, put together by eminent Nigerians. They've dissected Nigeria's problem and they're proffering solutions. We'll be hearing all of that tonight. We need to move forward, don't we? Thank you so much, everyone, for staying with us. Well, if you hear the word Sorosoke, which means in English, speaking up, is perhaps a term used for young people before and after the NSAS protest. Well, it's a time to say speak up on the issues of governance. But it does look like that terminology has now been adopted by some very elderly and eminent Nigerians who today have come forward to say they are concerned about the situation of the country. They're expert professionals and also elder statesmen in their own right. Some of them, which include Professor Abba Al-Kazum, Abubakar Siddiq Muhammad, Akilu Fatima, Dr. Bugaje Uzman, Mr. Clement Nwanko, Professor Jibrin Ibrahim, Mr. John Oda, Mr. Kole Shetima, Mr. NOB, Mr. Salihu Muhammad Kabir, Honorable Uche Onyegocha, and Mr. YZ Yao. All of them came together and they put pen to paper on a particular piece titled Nigeria at a Crossroads. They said, in the last almost 25 years, our governance and democracy has been threatened. Now, they did not only put forward the problems of this country, they came with solutions. I'm being joined tonight by a democracy and governance advocate and a scholar. Professor Ibrahim Jibrin is one of the elder statesmen and eminent Nigerians who have put forward this piece, Nigeria at a Crossroads. Thank you so much, Prof, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
How bad is the situation that we are in as a people? Because reading through the piece, I saw the depth of the analysis. It's quite a long read for a short piece, and you will wonder, it must have been something that you and your friends have been looking and thinking about for a while now. But for you to come out at this time, what prompted it, and how bad are the things that we are, the situation we are in today?
We came out at this time because we're alarmed. We are alarmed. Governance is collapsing completely in this country. We are alarmed because there's a complete breakdown of public trust between citizens and the government. And that we use the word crossroad to indicate that at this point, it's either government sits up and starts putting policies that work, or the country itself would crumble. And that's why we feel that we need to review what has been happening over the past, get out of the present conjuncture, and look at the process in depth with a focus of what can be done to address these issues so that we will begin to move the country forward. The risk at this time is extremely high, and we need drastic action. And that action has to be in terms of actually implementing policies. The key thing we point out is that policy is a set of action that addresses a problem, that solves a problem. When you articulate policies and that problem remains unsolved and actually worsens, it means you are not implementing any policy. That is, you are saying one thing and doing exactly the opposite. And that's why there's no forward movement in the country.
You made reference to the last 25 years. So you're not specifically talking about the Bola Tinubu government. You're talking about the promises which brought about the civilian rule in this country. The reasons why military take over power in this country and the excuses is almost they are using the same script whenever the military come into power. They will say they want to fight corruption and correct the ills and the corruption that the civilian government has left. Well, 25 years down the line, what you have described in your piece looks like a backwardness rather than progress. How bad, I mean, you were one of those who were at the vanguard, you know, when we crossed the Rubicon, when we crossed from a military era into a civilian route in 1999. Are you disappointed at where we are today, considering the hopes and aspirations of the average Nigerian as a then, at least a young adult who thought that we are entering into a future or a future that brings a hopeful one for Nigeria at that time?
All the 12 of us who wrote this piece were very active participants in the struggle to end military rule. We were on the barricades, we engaged the process, we were consistent, and we achieved results. The promise we made to Nigerians when we were fighting military rule is that when we have a return to democracy, there's going to be a profound change in which public resources will be used for the public good. Today, 25 years down the line, we look back and we saw that the promise we made have not been realized because those who have been in successive governments since 1999 have not kept to the promise of using public resources to pursue the public good. What they have done is to use public resources for their personal aggrandizement. The corruption that we have today is nowhere near what we had previously. In addition, because there's an abandonment of policy implementation on all sectors of the society, you have on the one hand the economy collapsing completely, and the corollary to that has been the massive growth of insecurity as more and more Nigerians realize this ruling class is not going to do anything for them, and self-help becomes the new ideology. When we are told today that millions of Nigerian youth have procured arms, it is telling you something, that this society has realized that the ruling class we have is extremely irresponsible and has not focused on the development of the society.
So Prof, the political system in Nigeria has failed.
It has failed to
describe them
deliver.
as insensitive.
Absolutely.
And one thing that you said that came out to me, you said, and I quote the words of this article, it said the tragedy of the last 1 year is that we now have a regime that has not only doubled our troubles, but has shown neither empathy, prudence, nor competence in governance. That is a summary of the Bola Tinubu of the last 1 year and his administration. Is that the position of the group?
Absolutely, because governments are judged by their acts of commission and by their acts of omission. Specific policies were put in place that have been extremely disastrous for the economy and for the people surviving within that economy. And those positive policies that were promised, the palliatives, for example, the Nigerian poor have never, ever seen that palliatives. We know, we are told on a daily basis that billions and billions have been given to state governments and to federal ministries to address the problems of the poor. But those of us in contact with the poor, we have never met any poor Nigerian that had ever benefited from what is being said. In that case, what is happening is that the government in this country is telling stories that are not based on any reality, and that's why citizens are exasperated, because they don't see a relationship between what is said by government and what's happening in their daily lives.
You criticize the major decisions of the Bola Tinubu government, and you've related it, you've linked it with the problems of food inflation, food shortages, insecurity, and corruption. And in fact, you're saying that the lifestyle of government officials are anything but underwhelming. And you have said in that article, you said the withdrawal of petroleum subsidy without any plans to cushion the effect have sent prices through the roof. The floating of the naira and the IMF has sent the naira crushing, causing chaos in the economy and poverty in the society. The rise in taxation and electricity bills has led to closure of many businesses, and even private schools are finding it difficult to operate. The executive and the legislature, some would include the judiciary, appear to be in cohort to plunder the country to the finish. If you describe the government of the day as such, it looks to me that there is no trust that you have given this government. And this government will tell you that, look, what we have done is in tandem with the yearnings of a lot of Nigerians, experts who have said, this is the way to go. Remove subsidy, float the naira, crush the multiple exchange windows. And this is what they say they have done. The government of the day will say, wait for us a moment, that some of the actions and policies of our government will start yielding results. It's just a matter of time. Is it that you and your friends are impatient with this government to see the result, or what exactly is going on?
Nigerians have a memory. Remember when they did this fuel price removal of subsidy? They said in weeks we'll have LNG buses and the prices of transport will crash. That was 13 months ago that they said that. And Nigerians know they haven't seen those things. This idea is called waiting for Godot in world literature, where you are told continuously the good things we have done, you will see them soon, and you go from weeks to months to years, and you don't see that good coming, then you know that what you are being told is a narrative that's not based on any reality. And that's why Nigerians today are very upset and are very angry, because they are being deceived regularly and systematically by a government that feels, oh, we can tell stories, we will survive, we'll refuse to do what we need to do, and we'll survive because we'll tell stories that will cover up our non-deeds or our bad deeds. And at some point, Nigerians have to say, no, you can't continue to tell us stories.
But have you written the Tinubu government off? It's just 1 year and 2 months in office.
Well, you see, if in 14 months you are unable to show progress, then we don't see how that progress will come in 4 years, because progress has to start immediately because the crisis is serious, and it has to be incremental. So
14 out of 48 months that they asked, that they were voted for, you think that 14 months is fundamental, is basic, is a foundational period that we should start seeing results? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. That if by now we haven't started seeing results, it means those results are not on the way.
So you've written this government off. You don't think anything fruitful can come in the next 4 years?
No. We are telling this government that you can't continue by giving false narratives. You have to actually start putting sets of policies in place that will address the issue. Let me explain something, for example, that's very straightforward to you. There's this story that we've been giving billions and billions to state governments to use for palliatives and to address the food problems in their states. And it's true, those monies are given to state governments. What happens to this money? That's the question you have to answer. Everybody in this country knows what happens. It goes to the governor takes it, and then distributes it to local governments. Local governments gives this to wards, but who does it get to at the federal, state, local government and ward levels? It goes to the party barons who are in power, and they therefore corner all these resources that are coming in and refuse to distribute it to those who are actually in need. And everybody knows that this money, these resources, these grains that are distributed never gets to those in need. It goes to those who are already enjoying vast salaries, vast allowances, and then they take these palliatives and add to their wealth and accumulation. So that's the story. Since no government in this country can pretend it doesn't know that's what's happening, you can't continue doing the same thing and expect you'll get a different result.
Yeah,
that's the point we are saying. So the policy of government in terms of these palliatives is to make sure the poor never gets it.
As direct and as punchy as your criticism of this government is, compared to other citizens who criticize this government that never come up with solutions, you have proffered some solutions. And I love the fact that you put your solution in three strata: the economy, security, and corruption. Time may not permit us to be able to touch on all of this, but at least we can show our viewers what the solutions that you're proffering. First, in the state of the economy, you were talking about the revitalized social safety net program to capture and deliver to the most vulnerable. If you can summarize the thought of your group on the way to go for this economy, just in about a minute, so that we can move to the next and up to the next one too.
Yeah, the point we are saying is this question of providing for the poor. Everybody knows where the poor are in this country, and everybody can identify them. Why is it that you only distribute to politically exposed individuals, knowing fully well those politically exposed individuals who feel they are entitled to gather all the resources of societies for their own family needs and aggrandizement? By so doing, you are making sure that you deepen the gulf between the ordinary people who are in real trouble and the political class that has completely lost touch with the reality of what's happening in their own society. And what we are saying is this: the social distance between government and the people in this country has become extremely wide, and there's a certain callousness, wickedness of people in government who don't appear to be worried at all about the hunger in the land. I mean, one of the issues people encounter in this country on a daily basis is that when they fall sick and they see medical personnel, they are given a prescription, they can't buy the drugs. And every day, people are dying in this country because they are sick. Their sickness is curable, but they don't have the money to buy the drugs. People are beginning to starve in this country. And what does government say? Oh, some political enemies are mobilizing them to agitate. So what government is saying, people are starving, they should starve quietly and not make noise so that nobody will hear that they are starving till they die. And people are now saying, no, for heaven's sake, we are not going to starve to death silently. We are going to scream. We are going to make the point that we voted for government to address our problems, and they are not addressing their problems, and they are letting us waste in this society.
So you are advocating for more inclusion, money to get right to the grassroots, to succor for the average person. In the area of security, I see that you are asking or preferring solution in the way of establishment of a National Security Coordination Center. You are also asking for an establishment of a National Peacebuilding and Reconciliation Commission. Some of the solutions that you are proffering in the security aspect are more of people-oriented oriented, psychological effort. Why? Do you think that we do not need the guns and the bullets?
For example, in this country, security has been collapsing for over 2 decades. We have an Institute for Peace and Conflict Resolution in the country. That institute is located under the rubrics of the Foreign Ministry. The Foreign Ministry has no mandate for internal security. So this institute has been idle for the last 25 years because 25 years ago, a mistake was made and they were put in the wrong ministry. And that's why we're saying it's a collective responsibility of successive governments, because it was Obasanjo who started that institute and put it in the wrong ministry. And now, 25 years later, it's still in the wrong ministry. It means nobody in government is actually looking at their agencies and saying, how do we use this agency to address problems that are actually happening in society?
And that's why we're saying is available.
Yeah, and that's what we're saying is policy is not just saying you have written things on paper. It's also looking to see how it will work. So if this institute hasn't worked for this period, over almost 25 years, then you should do what you need to do to make it to work.
Prof, we are totally out of time, but the corruption area, you're asking for a creation of Operation Clean Sweep, that they should launch a high-profile, rigorous anti-corruption campaign against prominent Nigerians, especially political expert persons. I'd like you to wrap up in just 30 seconds on that effort. Will it work? Have we not been seeing this kind of thing before?
Well, it has not worked. And what we are saying is that the reason it has not worked is that the center of corruption is government. And therefore, these people in government decide, we are not going to deal with corrupt people because we are the ones. And I'm saying, and we are saying, that no, you have to change that attitude, because everybody now knows that's what government is doing, and that it's because of this level of corruption that we are paying the price of hunger and misery and ill health in this country. And that if we don't start seeing people in government held accountable for their acts of corruption, there is no really will on the part of government to move the country forward.
Thank you so much, Professor Ibrahim Jibrin, who is a governance and democracy advocate and a scholar. Is one of the eminent Nigerians who came together and who brought up this document, Nigeria at a Crossroad, and Proffering Solutions, some of which we showed you on the screen tonight. Thank you so much indeed for your time. And we wish our nation the very best. My regards to you and your colleagues too.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone, for watching. And that's the edition for today. Many thanks, everyone, for being part of it. I'm Sean Okimale. I'll see you next time. God bless Nigeria.